welcome everybody. Want to call the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Westminster to order. And the first order of business is approval of minutes of the last two sessions, first of which occurred on October 6th. And everybody should have received the meeting summary from Andrew. And if so, have we had a chance to look at it? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes, both of the meeting of October 6th, 2020 and the meeting of November 3rd, 2020.
You want to do them both? Okay, that's fine. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
They should be separate votes, however.
All right.
That's what I thought.
Okay, I'll
Let's
do just
October
that.
6th first.
Okay,
You can
So-
move.
so
and-
moved for October 6th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the meeting summary from our November 3rd hearing.
Move it be approved as written.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
so approved. I will sign those and get them to you, Andrew. Probably tomorrow. I'll
Thank
let
you,
know
Mr.
for
Chair.
sure. The business at hand for this evening is public hearing on case number 20-06. An application by Milton Beebe, the property owner, requesting approval of a variance to the required minimum leased side yard setback of 8 feet in Article 7 residential 7,500 residential zone 164-37C Bowlegged 1. Dimensional requirements for the city zoning ordinance in order to allow a building addition to be 2 feet from the property line to be located at 68 South Ralph Street in Westminster, Maryland. Let's start off with comments from our city staff. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, if you could go to the next slide. For the location of the property, it's located at the corner. It's located approximately 180 feet southwest of the South Ralph Street and Winchester Avenue intersection. Next, currently at 68 South Ralph Street, there is an existing single-family detached dwelling unit at the property located approximately 2 feet from the southwest side property line and a freestanding garage structure located to the rear of the dwelling. Also, there is an existing unenclosed roofed porch extending from the rear of the dwelling, of which the edge of the roof is approximately 2 feet away from the southwest side property line. The applicant is proposing to enclose a portion of the unenclosed porch roof located 2 feet from the southwest side property line and is the reason for the proposed variance to the 8-foot required side yard setback. Regarding sections 164, 161A3A, number 1, 2, and 3 of the city zoning ordinance, the information provided by the applicant did not address these standards. Testimony should include any exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of uses in the same zone. Also, testimony should include any effects on the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same zone and in the same vicinity. Lastly, testimony should include any possible substantial detriment to adjacent properties and how this proposed variance will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. Next. In conclusion, Zoning Administration recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals carefully consider approving the proposed variance. Mr. Chair, I would like to submit the application into the record as Exhibit number 1 and the staff report into the record as Exhibit number 2. Thank you. And
Second.
also, thank you, Mr. Chair. And also the applicant and his representative is on the Zoom call for questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Capehart, I can't see you for some reason. But we'll turn it over to you, and if Mr. Beebe is going to testify, I'd like to swear him.
Sure.
If you will raise your hand, Mr. Beebe. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I will turn it over to you, Mr. Kiphart, and go from here.
Thank you. This is Andrew Kiphart on behalf of Milton Beebe, and as you can see from the Mr. Gray's screen share here, we're looking at an actual picture of the addition for which the variance is being requested. I realize that you may think it's a bit strange that an addition has already been partially constructed, or at least majority of it has been constructed, and we're asking for our variance now. So I thought that it would be good to have Mr. Beebe go through essentially a brief timeline of how it is that we got into this position in the first place. It's my understanding that the building permit for this addition was actually submitted in February of this year, February 28th, 2020. Is that correct, Mr. Beebe?
Yes, as far as I know.
And work began shortly after or around that time, end of February 2020. Is that correct? And you didn't hear anything, or did you hear anything about the status of that building permit after it was actually submitted?
No, I never had a reason to question the contractor.
Okay. And did there come a time when you affirmatively reached out about the status of that building permit?
Yes,
And when did that occur?
when I realized the contractor that I was working with was taking way too long in the project, and I sought to get somebody else that could rectify it. So that happened. At the end of August, going into September, I realized, I need to get the actual permit myself.
And who did you reach out to request a status of the building permit for this addition?
Andrew Gray. Well, eventually wound to Andrew Gray. I just went through the websites and he responded.
And did Mr. Gray advise you as to the issue with the building permit?
Absolutely.
And what was that issue?
He said, well, you're going to have to get a variance.
And the variance is for the purpose of getting a special exception for that 8 feet setback for the 8 feet or
Correct.
for that least side yard.
Correct.
Did you mean a variance?
I'm sorry?
Did you mean a variance? You said special exception. I just want the record to be clear.
Oh, yes, the variance, excuse me. All right, so can you describe for the board the basic scope of the project, why you need this addition to your home?
As a single veteran laboring in the home, I know I'm going to need a little bit more space for the wheelchair. And I had no ability before this to do that. So I wanted to get the bathroom, and specifically the bathroom area enlarged to accommodate me.
Do you suffer from any specific health concerns that would make this sort of addition particularly relevant to you at this time?
Now I'm in my third bout of cancer. This one's lymphoid cancer. First was bladder, next was prostate. 2006 bladder cancer, 2012 prostate, 2018 diagnosed with lymphoid cancer. I'm still working on treatment from University of Maryland Medical Center. I briefly mentioned right before we started this.
And at this time, the addition is the majority of it is finished. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, the space is there. It's certainly not. It's not habitable yet. But I wanted to hold up until I get another crew in there, so I can. I'm living in my living room right now.
And did you stop work as soon as an
Yes,
issue was identified?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to try and share my screen here just to get a. Whoop. actually can't share my screen because of some host restrictions, but I just wanted to bring up, if Andrew, actually you had the picture that I was going to show.
And Mr. Kiphart, is that the picture of the diagram?
The diagram as well as the exterior of the structure, yes.
Okay, I will bring that up. Hold on once.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Why is that so big?
Mr. Kiphart, is that the drawing you were referring to?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right, not a problem.
I realize that this is a little bit small, Milton,
That's
but
right. I drew it.
good. So on that diagram, we can see a notation here that says proposed
Yep,
area.
that's it. That's it.
Right. So it appears that your home had essentially what I would describe as a notch
That's correct.
out of it, the way
That's
that the
correct.
structure was originally constructed.
Right.
So tell the board why you chose this proposed area for this addition.
It's a logical place to put it. It would make the whole structure a lot nicer looking from the outside. It's certainly not going to. What was the term you used as far as like would it change the aesthetic or the what's it, material value or something like that? Would it change that? I don't think so. I think it would be an improvement, but it would basically allow me that wheelchair access that I was looking, because it would knock out the old little stall that they have of the toilet and give me a larger area for bathing and bathroom use.
So the exterior walls of the addition, do they meet flush with the existing structure's exterior walls?
Sure, you can see that.
And I don't think that this diagram really shows it, but if Mr. Gray would have zoomed out and show us the exterior photo.
Well, yeah, there's over.
So
That's basically like half the house. The other half of the house is the kitchen and the front room.
so we can see that right in the middle of this photo is a post, and you can begin to see what is the top of a roof. Can you describe what's happening off of the back of the house near this addition?
Well, it's a porch that's been there ever since prior to the owner that had it before me. It's been there like 20 years.
So is the addition that you're requesting a variance for here entirely covered by that sort of enclosed or semi-enclosed or a roofed porch, I guess would be the most apt term?
Right. It closes in portion of that porch. It doesn't really add anything else except closes in portion of that porch.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the board at this time?
Trying to think of what you might be. I can't think of anything that
And if I just maybe heard just argument as opposed as relevant to the three items of the board. So the first criteria for approving variances comes from 164-161A31. And that says that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of uses in the same zone. And so we've touched on this both in our application, which has been submitted as part of the record, as well as the staff report. And that's really the fact that this property is an existing non-conforming use. The property was originally constructed in 1950, and it was constructed 2 feet from the property line. So that was a legal construction when the original property went in. That 8 feet setback requirement did not exist at that time. So the addition here is if we were to sort of zoom back out and show that diagram, the the sort of the phrase or the metaphor that I've used is this, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, right? And this addition was the final piece of that puzzle. It fills in that notch that was in the existing structure. It does not encroach or further encroach upon any of the setback requirements that were already in place based off of the existing original structure. Okay, both the length and width meet the existing structure's length and width. So it's not encroaching further upon the 2 feet that was existing by the original structure, and it's not encroaching further into the backyard than the home already did. And more than that, it's all being contained within this covered porch at the back end.
This dimension right here is 12 feet.
So the second criteria that's used is that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by other properties in the same zone. And again, at risk of repeating myself, I think that what we're really dealing with here is the fact that the existing non-conforming use really only gives you so many options in a case like this, right? Where we're really dealing with an exceptional circumstance in which, because the house was built how it was and legally when it was, my client is really limited in the sort of types of additions that he could put onto his house to achieve the kind of, you know, accessibility that he's trying to achieve in his late age. I don't believe that it makes any more sense to put this sort of addition on any other piece of the property. If you were to build off of the back of the property, it would have to be, to avoid the setback requirement, it would have to be towards the middle of the house or the other side of the house, which would then reduce the setback of the rear yard. And it would also essentially become cost prohibitive because the room that he's actually made the addition onto was an existing bathroom. So if he were to try and make a new addition, he would essentially have to retrofit a different room of his house to create essentially the accessibility in the space that he really needs it. And if he were to build it on the other side, he would be encroaching upon his driveway. And again, I like the jigsaw puzzle piece metaphor. I think really is apt in this specific scenario because it fits right within that existing notch and is covered by the porch. So really, it does not encroach any more than the existing structure already did. And finally, number 3, the authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties and will not materially impair the purpose of this chapter or the public interest. Again, I'm repeating myself, but this addition does not encroach any further than the existing structure. I mean, yes, it is increasing the enclosed livable space of the house. That's true. But all the walls are meeting with the existing walls. The house will still exist within that 8 feet setback requirement. We're just essentially extending that space underneath the existing covered porch, which also exists within that 2 feet or 8 feet setback.
50 square feet.
So the entire addition is an addition of 50 square feet within that notch. I think that this is a fundamentally reasonable request. I think that, you know, that my client really got caught up in the building permit sort of snafu where it was requested, I think on the last day of February of this year, 2/28, and he did not hear about the status of this building permit, so the project went on. That is right around the time, you know, March of this year, where COVID hit and all of the restrictions sort of fell down on us, and we're all scrambling to sort of, you know, find out what processes work. So I think that, you know, the city was probably a bit overwhelmed at that time, and Mr. Beebe just did not get notice that there was an issue. Obviously, he's not a zoning staff member. He's not an attorney. He's not fully aware of what all the zoning requirements are. He's relying upon a contractor at this time to pull the permits and make sure that everything was good with the project moving forward. He relied upon the contractors to essentially do the work. And so that's why we're here today at this, admittedly late stage to request a variance for what I still think is an entirely reasonable addition to an existing non-conforming use. Nothing further unless there are questions from the board.
Mr. Kiphart, you referenced documents that were shown on the screen. I believe those were included in your pre-hearing information report. Did you want to, because you're referencing documents, we need to get that into the record. Did you want to submit your entire pre-hearing information report as an exhibit, or did you want to just carve out portions of it?
I would ask that the entire pre-hearing statement be admitted into the record. Forgive me, I thought that was included in with the staff report. At least that's what it looked like with the staff. It looked like the pre-hearing statement along with all my exhibits were included in the staff report, which I believe Mr. Gray admitted into the record as either 1 or 2. So I didn't want to be duplicitous, but yes, if it hasn't already been admitted into the record, I would move that it be admitted now.
Ed?
Okay, yep. I think that makes sense. I mean, it did all come as a package. I have a question just in general. I guess what you're saying is, if I understood you right, there's no communication whatsoever from the time that Mr. Beebe contracted with, looks like a company called CF Orr Construction, and they pulled the permit from the county. Was there no crossover between the county and the city at that point in time where the city could have been alerted to say this is going to require a variance early on?
And yes, what happens is that a building permit is submitted with the county. The county does send the building permit to the city for review and approval. In this case, being that the permit required a variance, we would not approve the building permit. We would have denied the building permit. It then goes back to the county. We just provide that information to the county. The county then, my understanding, would reach out to the applicant. Ultimately, at the end of the day, until you get issuance of that permit, until the county actually issues that building permit, construction shouldn't begin. In this case, unfortunately, the contractor moved forward without that issuance. So I'm not aware I'm not sure if the county then forwards any comments to the applicant itself, or they just rely on the applicant themselves checking in the permit. I'm not sure what happens after we send back to the county.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear whether or not there was that crossover between the county and the city.
We do attempt to, at least now. This is certainly a case where we're trying to correct things. We get a building permit and we do see that we cannot approve it and a variance is necessary, or with other means, we do contact the applicant today to let them know that what the issue with the city approval may be.
Okay, thank you. Board have any other questions at this time?
I don't.
I don't either.
Okay. Mr. Kephart, do you want to call Mr. Parham at this time? Is he going to testify for you?
Yes, he's an adjacent property owner. Mr. Parham, I believe he needs to be sworn in.
Yes. If you raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Kephart.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Dexter Paul Parham II. I live at 70 South Ralph Street in Westminster.
Thank you.
Mr. Parham, I don't want to put words in the board's mouth, but I think what they would like to hear from you is whether or not you have any sort of objections or whether you have any concerns with respect to the addition that we are requesting a variance for, whether you feel that it will somehow affect your use and enjoyment of the property. So I'm not going to ask you any more specific questions than that. I'll just allow you this time to speak about your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, no problem. As far as the addition goes, it doesn't pose any kind of negative issues with the use of our property. As shown in the photos and in the sketch, the wall that faces our property doesn't extend any farther, any closer towards the property line than the existing, the walls on the existing house do. To the rear, it is tucked nicely underneath of the rear porch roof extension. So we have no issue at all with the way it was done, or having it done. If that's, I mean, if it's good enough for the county and the city to approve it, then we're fine with it as well.
Okay.
Nothing further from Mr. Parham.
Any questions of Mr. Parham?
I have just one quick one. In the photo where the step ladder is, it looks like there's a cement brick wall at the edge of the photo itself. Is that the applicant's, or is that your wall?
We are not 100% sure on whose wall that is, because neither one of us lived here when the houses were built. I would assume that wall actually belongs to Mr. Beebe's property, because it actually does attach to his house at the front side of the wall. We believe that it pretty much sits just on his side of the property line. But like I said, it connects to his house at the front, and then just kind of free forms to the end, of the porch area.
Yeah, I was just curious. So.
I have a question then in that regard. I was going to ask about that. How long is that wall? Does it extend the whole length of the house? It doesn't look like it does.
No. It starts. It
12 feet.
starts at the back corner of the original house. It kind of shimmies over about a foot and then goes back towards the back of the property about
12 feet.
About 12 feet. Yeah, 12 to 15 or so, I'd say. And then does another little turn towards our property, which looks like it dead ends kind of like right on the edge of the property line, at the rear of it. So, and at that point, it's still, it kind of stops close to where our garage is.
Okay, I think I got it. Mr. Beebe, was that wall there when you purchased the property?
Yes, sir.
Or any questions about that wall in that time frame?
No. At the time, I was a homeless vet, depending on a Veterans Administration loan to get a place to stay.
So it didn't bother you. There was a home there.
Yes, sir. That's all I was looking for.
Okay. I have no other questions.
I have none.
I have none.
You want to do any kind of a summary, Mr. Kiphart, before we close testimony?
No, I think that we've beaten the horse enough.
Okay, then we will officially close testimony at this time and leave it up to us on the board here to discuss and move forward with a motion. I guess I'll start. When I look at the layout of these properties from 68 to 70 and 72 and 74, I mean, if it's an accurate drawing and it appears it's an official one, every other property is all the way up against the property line. As you look at it, let's just say to their left, whereas 68 Ralph Street at least has a 2-foot separation for some reason. So I see no harm done here whatsoever. And especially with trying to incorporate within the existing framework of the building, i.e. that porch area, makes good sense to me for all the reasons that Mr. Beebe wants to do this, to make it easier for him to navigate a wheelchair, given his conditions. That's my take on the whole.
And I agree with you. I think the fact that we're in the same footprint as what exists there with the roof, we're not going any further anywhere. So it makes a lot of sense to me, and it sounds like it is necessary to provide the homeowner what he needs.
I agree with what Brenda said. She said what I was going to say anyway. So thank you very much
You've got it. Anything for you, Larry.
for reading my mind.
All right. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for a variance to required minimum lease side yard setback of 8 feet to 2 feet, to leave it the way it is and be able to build out that portion of that back area and within the same, basically the same footprint. Do I have a
I will
second?
second. Go for it, Larry.
No, you may second it.
I second the motion of Ed's.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. So you'll have your variance and your contractor can move forward, Mr. Vivi.
Thank you very much.
I don't think we have any other business before the board. Staff, do you want to make any mentions of any future endeavors?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just to let the board know, for your January meeting, there will be an application for a variance to the required minimum lease side yard setback of 8 feet, contained in the same article as this hearing here, for a variance to 3 feet. And that will be located at 35 Westmoreland Street in Westminster. So that will be for, let me just look at the calendar. So it looks like January 5th at 6 p.m. We will get the notice. I'm working on the notices now, Mr. Chair. I will get those for you to look at, and then we will go from there.
All right, sounds good. If we have no other business, then we are officially adjourned.
Thank you
all
all.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.